Hello, welcome to the Enchanted Circle podcast, and welcome to our 10th episode. We are a new podcast of three best friends that have known each other since high school that love fantasy books. So here we are doing what we love most, which is obviously reading, theorizing, and having a great time together. From meeting in high school to reading Harry Potter, Twilight, and the Mortal Instruments series to reading Fourth Wing and ACOTAR, we are all back to rereading Fourth Wing and Iron Flame to prepare for the upcoming release of Onyx Storm. So we created this podcast for the recap and to theorize together. I'm Carolina. Welcome to episode 10. We are covering chapters 22 through 28 of Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. I finally started Spark of the Everflame, and it's so good. I can't wait to continue reading. Steph, I hope you have a great Disney trip with the family.
Oh, thank you.
Please send pictures of the girls dressed up as princesses, and I hope they behave like princesses. If you know, you know. And we hope you enjoy our podcast and have fun.
They better behave like princesses and not like villains because I'm going to tell them villains do not belong in Cinderella's castle.
If you know, you know from our previous episode.
I'm Bella. Welcome everyone. I don't know if I'm more excited for Carol reading the first book of the Kindred series right now, The Spark of Everflame, or starting Throne of Glass. As Carol said, quote, per our contract, this series is already hooking me up. I already read Throne of Glass, The Crown of Midnight, and I'm now on Assassin's Blade. I completely understand what the hype is about, and I also understand why people recommend reading Assassin's Blade first if they want a more emotional punch. I hate crying when I'm reading or watching a story, so I'm relieved to have read it after the first few books. I can't wait to get back into it. Anyway, thank you for being here and enjoy the show.
Hi, guys. While you guys are listening to this episode, I am in Disney World with my family. I am so excited to see all my blood, sweat, and tears. The planning I have put into this come to fruition. I promise you all to show you some pictures, especially the ones for my daughter's 4th birthday tomorrow on the 11th. I cannot believe they are 4. What a journey motherhood has been. Everybody tells you to enjoy every single moment because you'll miss the days and you'll shrug them off because you're in the thick of it. But wow, does it really go by so fast. Now, I would just love to rewind time and relive it again through the eyes of a mother of 4-year-olds. I thank God I get to be their mommy, so please enjoy the moments. This is our 10th episode, and it just amazes me that we've created this podcast and have been here for 10 episodes, plus 2 emergency episodes. So sit back and relax and let's get into it.
We just have to mention content warnings. There will be spoilers for the entire book of Fourth Wing and Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros, including all of Xaden's POV chapters. If you have not read any of these books and his new POVs, please come back once you do. We wouldn't want to spoil anything for you. We may mention interviews or posts from Rebecca Yarros, so spoilers with that. Fair warning, we will be quoting quite a bit of Fourth Wing and Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros for this recap. This podcast is rated R due to the topics we discuss about this adult book. Also, we tend to curse a lot, so please be aware of children listening. Let's get into it. Chapter 22. Quote, at some point, probably during your second year, you'll realize the trust you feel for your friends and family has nothing on the loyalty you'll develop for your squad. Page 90, The Book of Brennan. Wonder, was Naolin in Brennan's squad? And did this just clarify that Brennan is possibly more loyal to Naolin than his own family? Just saying. Violet is having a nightmare. It starts by her running towards Taryn, and he's about to die, and Andarna is there as well. A hooded figure, aka Venom, tells Violet there's nowhere for her to go. The Venom takes Violet off her feet, and Violet feels as if it, quote, stopped time, end quote. Guys. The theory of time travel in this series is not off the table, and this is proof right here.
Yeah, I agree.
Violet describes the Venom as, quote, white of his scalp under his slickened back thinning hair. Shadows mark the gaunt hollows of his cheekbones on an eerily youthful face, and his lips are cracked and dry, just like the land behind me. But it's his red-rimmed eyes, the distended veins spiderwebbing across his temples and cheeks that have me fighting to open my mouth, straining to scream, end quote. Okay, side note, do we actually know what Naolin looks like, okay? What threw me off here is that she said he's relatively young, right? But would Taryn be able to see her nightmares too? Also, what made me not think this was Naolin is because the Venom says, quote, I've waited centuries for someone with your power, end quote. So this mother brother is old.
Yeah.
Yeah, doesn't look old, but is old. Violet tells the Venom to go fuck off, and in the nightmare, the Venom kills Taryn, which Violet starts to feel a wave of agony, etc. She says it's like a dream, but was it? Or was it a snippet of the future? Guys, I obviously do not want Taryn to die, but I have a feeling Rebecca is going to just get us. Let's tear our fucking hearts out with him. Next scene, she's asking Xaden where he's taking her, and Xaden simply tells her, quote, to Besgaeth's forge, end quote. Okay, Xaden, are we finally going to tell Violet things? Maybe, yes. Violet even thanks him, and he tells her, of course, and, quote, will I earn a little trust back now? End quote. Violet is so happy about this that she shares with him that quote. I found a text that said the first six didn't just establish the wards, but personally carved the first wardstone, end quote, which they knew already. But Violet continues saying yes, but since they carved the one at Besgaeth, that means they carved the one in Arisha. Violet, our brilliant woman, will get to the bottom of this without a doubt. Violet remembers that her dad saw a first-hand account from one of the six, which Violet notes then exists, and she needs to find it. Side note, guys, her memory is impeccable, and I would never remember something like that.
I
I just
know.
want to
So
note that.
jealous of her.
My brain
Gosh.
would be like, what? Like, my dad, what? As they are heading towards the forge, they bump into Major Varish. Oh boy. Guys, whenever I see this man's name on a page, he pisses me the fuck off. But anyway, I just have to say, Violet describes his smile as greasy, and it had me rolling when I was reading this. Violet fears for Xaden because he's carrying so much contraband that she notes he could be executed 2 times over. Greasy Varish yells out to Professor Grady that he found Violet. Man, are they going through a lot of trouble to find her specifically. As Professor Grady approaches, Riddick is with him and his arms are behind his back. Here we go. They're being taken, of course, conveniently when Xaden is there. They legit have nothing else to do with their lives but make sure Violet and Xaden don't get to see each other. But they couldn't get into Violet's room thanks to Xaden, but our boy says, quote, I'm not going to apologize, end quote. Then Varish's minions come around the corner with Ree and Sawyer with their hands also behind their backs. Yep, their squad is next up for interrogation. Ugh. Xaden tries to get Violet out of it, saying she's on leave, and tells Violet mind to mind, quote, hell, use this opportunity to kill you for the embarrassment Taryn put him and Solus through, end quote. Violet responds that he can't possibly know that, and Xaden goes, quote, his intentions are pretty fucking clear. Trust me, end quote. And welcome to the Delulu podcast because we missed this one too. Varish clarifies that only Xaden is on leave, not Violet. Varish is such a greasy piece of shit. As Varish looks at Xaden's shadows, he's amazed and even notes how quite something Xaden and Violet are together. Yeah, they are the 2 most powerful riders in Navarre, you greasy mother.
Isn't it interesting? He says they're quite something. And then in what the Venom want, whenever they interact with Violet and Xaden, they're always saying they want them, like they're the prize, like they have special specific powers. So is he saying this not as come to heed with Besgaea and that army, or is he saying it for the Venom once they come to heed for the Venom?
That's an interesting point.
Is he saying it for that command ship, or is he saying it for the Venom?
Warning?
Yeah.
Like, is it like a warning to them? That's a good point, and it might actually be so because as time goes on, I feel like more people are out to get Violet and Xaden. So that's a good point. Like, it started with Jack, number 1. Now look, they might communicate like in some mind to mind way or like some weird way. Who knows? I don't know.
Like a
Ooh.
hive.
And my theory changed about Naolin. I don't know if he's the big bad Venom, but I think he's definitely like a general or like something like right under there.
Related to like some
Yeah.
high position.
Violet tells Xaden mind to mind that he can't protect her like he couldn't at Threshing, and he knows it. Xaden responds, quote, you weren't mine at Threshing, end quote. Okay, I'm just squealing. Violet says out loud for Xaden to drop the barrier of his shadows, and Varish even says to Xaden, quote, "Do listen to your little girlfriend. I'd hate to report that you disobeyed a direct order, or worse, cancel her leave for the next weekend. There is really nothing you can do here," end quote. Varish, you have a death wish. Where's Taryn, by the way? And you think Xaden backs down? Nope, of course not. Our boy is fired up so much that he basically tells Varish to fuck off and he doesn't command Xaden around. Violet, panicking, reaches out for Sigale, telling her, like, sis, they are threatening to cancel next week's visit if Xaden doesn't stop. But Sigale comes through with the quote, "I chose him for his inability to relent," end quote. She knows that he got this. Violet is like, "Oh, for fuck's sake," and reminds Sigale what he's carrying. And Sigale is like, "Fine." Only so this conversation ends. Like, I'm dead. This had me laughing out loud when I was reading it. And I guess Sigale knocks some sense into Xaden because he backs down, but he threatens Varish that one day they will have words. And yes, they will. Xaden even tells Violet mind to mind, quote, "You went to see Gale," end quote. Violet is like, "Yeah, you stubborn ass." As Violet is being taken away, Xaden says, quote, "Violence, remember it's only the body that's fragile. You are unbreakable," end quote. And she repeats the word unbreakable. Ugh, imagine what Xaden is feeling here, guys. He wants to protect her so badly, and he would legit kill Varish and whoever in his way to be there for her, and he just can't. It's okay, Xaden. Our girl is so strong and she got this. Chapter 23. Violet notes that the entrance to the interrogation area is so well hidden and it's in the cliffside under the foundation walls of the quadrant. Guys, this part I hate. This next few chapters, it's like the interrogation is just so hard. Violet describes the antechamber windowless and a large wooden desk in the middle of the room with a high back chair on one side and two on the other. The squad is disarmed immediately. She notes two chambers in the space and it's, quote, "braced with steel, and both have barred windows currently held closed by a steel latch," end quote. Damn, like, why they have this intense shit at a college? Like, at the end of the day, this is a college, okay?
Yeah.
This is a college with students, not prisoners. But Professor Grady informs them that they have been given information they need to protect. They lead the squad into the chamber on the right that is described as, quote, "a scarred wooden table in the center of the dome-shaped room with 6 chairs, along with the cobblestone walls are 5 wooden beds with no mattresses and a door that I'm desperately hoping leads to the bathroom or things are going to get awkward," end quote. All I keep imagining is, our Xaden was here too not that long ago. I don't know who his squad mates were. I can assume Garrick was there, but imagine him going through this alone. Anyway, Violet sits next to Ree, and Riddock and Sawyer are across from them. We learn that they are not in the, quote, "graded scenario," end quote, yet, but they still could ask questions right now. This exercise is instruction only. Apparently, it's an assessment. Professor Grady mentions that Varish has taken special interest in their squad. I wonder why. I wonder if Varish was assigned by his Venom commander to go and take out Violet, which we could highly assume so. Also, Taryn and Xaden just made it worse for Violet, especially embarrassing Varish not once, but twice.
How this psycho Varish gets away with torturing is beyond me. The fact that they've noticed the interest he has in Violet and let him get away with it, it's
Right.
insane. Moreover, how far removed is Lilith that she hasn't realized what they're trying to do to her daughter? We hear how much she wants to protect Violet, yet, after she came back from Athabine, she has not amped up any protections for Vi. Or is it because she trusts Xaden to protect her? Hmm?
But we know Zaddy got this. She don't need nobody but Zaddy, okay? That's it. This
She
is the
got
We
it.
Love Xaden podcast.
That's it. Only Xaden.
Bella apparently loves Rowie now, so.
Oh yeah, I do. I'm a Rowie girl.
The minions bring in food and drinks, and Professor Grady tells them to eat and drink because they won't have a chance to otherwise once they start. Professor Grady also mentions that there is a patch up for grabs if they manage to escape, which has not been in a squad that escaped in a decade. But our Iron Squad is coming in hot. He also mentions that they need to share a secret with each other that no one else besides the four of them would know, along with the secret phrases they were given. They all mentioned a secret.
Ree tells them about her and Violet sneaking out of Montserrat and visiting her family. Ridoc says, quote, badass. Didn't know you had it in you to break the rules, Violet. End quote. It's comical that at this point they haven't realized that all she does is break the rules in a smart way using the codex, lol. Then Ree responds with, quote, oh, Violet's full of secrets, aren't you? End quote. Poor Ree, but also smart Ree because she notices that Violet is going through something. Sawyer then shares his secret, which is that he did not tell his parents he repeated first year due to not bonding a dragon. Ridoc, being Ridoc, shares that he's afraid of snakes.
I just love how innocent everyone's like secrets are, and Violet has
Mhm.
like so many crazy ones like she
I
can't
know, right?
reveal.
Violet says hers is that she's in love with Xaden. Everyone is like, Violet, we been knew that, sweetie.
We're all like, girl,
It's like, girl,
Tell us
you were
something we don't know.
why you lying to
right.
yourself, girl?
Like she's the only one that didn't know this apparently. But then she told them that the infantry were killing Paromish civilians at the border in Samara. They are all in shock. They're all about to drink from the mug, and Violet yells at them to not drink it because she recognized it smelled exactly the same as the drink that disconnected them from their dragons. They all threw the drink down the toilet and they said to pretend that they're disconnected. Smart squad. Professor Grady walks in and Ree immediately plays the game, saying they're disconnected from their dragons. Professor Grady only says, quote, lesson number 1, we're always in a scenario, end quote. They're chained up, Sawyer, Ree, and Riddick in the other room, and of course Violet is the first one in the hot seat with the drain under it. Guys, these chapters are going to be hard to get through. I am so sad about these parts. Professor Grady leaves at this point, and the team is like, wait, no, because they're left with, you could guess, Varish, the greasy psycho. He does say he will be at the entrance. If they make it to him, they earn their patch. A man and a woman enter, and we find out that they can tell when they're lying. Are they intensics? Truth sayers? Riddick tries to lie about his phrase, and they are like, you're lying, ho. Then the woman backhands Violet, making Taryn yell out for her. The woman tells Violet that she's the weakest, and that's why she's going first. Little does this woman know, Violet is not the weakest. We are here for you, Violet. So the woman continues to antagonize Violet and talk mad shit and punches Violet. She goes and basically punches everyone else.
Violet tells him to fuck off. The woman sneers, quote, quite the mouth for a general's daughter, end quote. Violet replies, quote, who do you think I got it from, end quote. I want to note that the woman's facade slips and she smiles genuinely. Is she close to General Sorengale? What is a connection there? They receive more blows, but Violet definitely receives the blunt of it.
Then they leave. Violet's eyes is swollen shut. Oh, Violet, we love you. They all agree again to not break. This is our Iron Squad, guys. After a few, she reaches out for Xaden and asks him what time is it. And our Zaddy, concerned for his women, tells her, quote, almost midnight. Are you, end quote. He doesn't finish that sentence because Violet cuts him off and says, you know what happens here. And he simply says, yeah, he does. Which makes me sad again to think about what he went through, especially being a rebel child and the first one to go through Besgaiath. And again, like, was Garrick in his squad? I don't know. So technically he'd be alone, you know? I just feel sad for him. The man walks in with the drink and tells them he will give them the drink if they tell the secret. And of course they say, fuck you. Then who walks in again? Varish the greaser. Varish says this is taking too long, and the man and woman tell them that they are doing the standard protocol. And this greaseball says, quote, then it's a good thing that I'm here, and this is my area of expertise. Interrogation, end quote. God help them. Varish tells someone to come in, and it's Dane the shit stain. Fuck you, Dane, but also not, because you are gonna do much better now than you did in previous chapters.
Chapter 24, you guys. Violet immediately reaches for Xaden and finds him. She tells him Dane is there, and Xaden, of course, tells her, quote, I'm on my way, End quote. She reminds him he can't do anything about what is happening and draws power from Taryn to reinforce her shields 2 bricks deep in her mental archives. Guys, her mental strength is just elite. I've said it before and I'll say it again. She's just that girl. Riddock asked Dane if he is there to advocate for Violet, like, quote, Ryerson said a wing leader should, end quote. And Violet replies, quote, he's not, end quote. Dane surprises them both, or maybe he's taken back by what Riddock just said because he tells Varish, quote, regulations state that riders should be healthy before beginning interrogation assessment. Cadet Sorrengail is clearly not healthy. End quote. Varish replies, quote, such a rule follower. Regulations say that they should, not that they have to be. It's more realistic that a rider would be wounded when captured. End quote. Okay, that kind of makes sense, but Varish then tells Dane he is testing a theory. Quote, while we're waiting for our guests to arrive, you should practice on her, end quote. Violet immediately tells Xaden not to come. Quote, and if you come here whipping shadows around, he'll know I have something to hide, and this will become a real interrogation. Your only option is to trust that you trained me well enough. End quote.
I got to say, this was smart on their end, but thank God Violet and Xaden speak mind to mind, because Xaden would have been caught in that and just things would have gone south.
Dane realizes Varish wants him to use his signet on her, but only to draw out the secret phrase. He says, that's why she's so angry with you. She blames you for what happened with her friend. Dane doesn't act like a pain here, and he says he's not going to do it, as Violet realizes that Varish is Dane's teacher. Barish continues on telling Dane he can use his signet. Quote, you can see what really happened that day when the 2 marked ones were killed by Griffins, wasn't it, Cadet Sorrengail? The truth is waiting, Wing Leader Atos, and you're the only one who can see it. End quote. Obviously, this is what Varish wants, and Xaden, of course. Violet thinks to herself, quote, how can someone be so familiar and yet such a stranger? He is the same boy I climbed trees with, the same one I ran to whenever anything went wrong. He's also the reason Soleil and Liam are dead, end quote. Reminding us how Dane kind of very seems like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, the same but different, good versus bad, friend or foe. Varish continues on saying, quote, you can learn what it is she sees in him, why she chose him over you, end quote. I think that's the phrase that really gets to Dane and why Violet sees a war waging behind his eyes. Dane can't also reconcile the girl he knew with the writer she is now. But good wins out, even though he does reach out his hands toward her face. He says, quote, no, I will not participate in an interrogation assessment of a cadet with a prior injury, end quote. And he walks out. Varish then says, quote, well, that was disappointing and anticlimactic. Fucking rule follower. Back to typical tactics, I guess, end quote. And he throws a hard punch that dislocates Violet's shoulder. Guys, this grown ass man punching a 21-year-old, what the fuck? Violet blacks out from the pain.
This man deserves a long, slow, painful death. He should have been slowly tortured. And he's 100%, 1000% Venom, without a doubt.
He should have been incinerated.
Yeah, but even that's a little too quick. That's a
burnt
little too
alive.
quick. Very slow.
Roasting like a pig on
Like a
spit.
rotisserie chicken. Yeah, exactly. That's how he should have been tortured.
Violet wakes up to Nolan mending her injuries. Quote, the vice commandant called me in to heal you so he can shatter you again and again until you break. I'm on orders to remain in the antechamber for the rest of your interrogation, which he's extended until tomorrow, end quote. Sawyer asks if that's normal, to which he replies no. He wants whatever Violet is hiding. He asks Vi if it's worth holding on to, and she says yes, even with her squad mates being tortured. Nolan tells Violet to walk him to the door while he says, quote, you better find a way out, end quote. He closes the door and locks it, but not the window. On the other side of the door, we hear Nolan telling Varish he's been thinking of his quote-unquote other patient, Jack Ass Barlow, of course, but he manages to get Varish out. Again, I'm at a loss how Nolan goes from this to poisoning Violet later when she is actually tortured by Varish. Someone has to have a controlling signet. It does not compute how he helps her here only to be her downfall later.
But when Nolan betrays her, he did say something along the lines like he never liked to see her hurt, but he can't save her from everything. Don't quote me, that's just how I remember it. So to me, I'm like, wow, did he actually know what would happen to her? Obviously, he does hindsight later on because he was healing her, but I wonder if he regrets it or I wonder if he actually did try to help Violet behind the scenes. Like, how did he just turn on her like that? I need a backstory of him. I need to know how do you go from there to there, point A to point B. There's definitely a controlling signet somewhere because I don't even know if we still know what Daddy Atos' signet is.
Rhiannon states what Violet and Nolan were thinking. Quote, I really honestly think Varish might try to kill Violet, end quote. While Reddock asks Vi, what the hell do you know that we don't? She again tries to tell them that it's for their protection, but Sawyer says, quote, maybe you should let us decide what risks we're willing to take, end quote. And that is the damn truth. She really should let them decide whether they want to take that risk or not. But I understand also she promised Xaden not to say anything. So I get that point. Like she's conflicted, I'm sure. Finally, using Sawyer's signet, he melts the hinges on the door and they run for their weapons. They head to the main door and Violet feels one of her daggers is hot and tingling, kind of like the feeling when she walks through the wards in her room. She bumps the dagger to the door handle and the lock opens. Immediately after, the heat and the tingling sensation are gone from the dagger. My educated guess is that this is one of the daggers Xaden gave her with the alloy in it, and that is why it gets hot and is able to help with the wards on the lock. Like calls to like. The Core 4 squad escapes. Moving on to chapter 25. Quote, if we ever choose to invade enemy territory, which we don't, I would choose Zolia as my first target. Take out Cliffsbane Academy and you take out years of Griffin riders in one strike. Tactics, a personal memoir by Lieutenant Lyron Panchak. Now, pause. Y'all remember, Panchak is the one who wants General Sorrengail's job. So is he behind this whole thing? Is he the one leading the Venom to Biscayeth? It just seems so interesting that he would write
Mm.
that and then an attack on Zoya happens. The squad races out of the cave, thank God, because Violet was so close to being tortured to death. Ree, being super observant, asked Vi where she got her knives. It makes me think like Ree may have more knowledge than we actually know. I need more on Rhiannon's life story in my life. Professor Grady says with a smile, quote, well, this is an unexpected delight, end quote. And Violet spins around, ready to fuck him up, thinking he will make her go back to the interrogation room. But he's actually proud of the squad. Remember, they're supposed to be the strongest squad, and they failed the first RC lesson when they were supposed to be working with infantry. This made Grady proud. In the next few days, Violet knows that Dane won't look, nor does he try to talk to her. But what exactly is Violet looking for? She has been giving him the cold shoulder for weeks. She wants him to be the guy she's always known, but she hasn't given him any idea that she still needs him, which she does. That is why she's so hurt by him, because she cares. The Core 4 is making their way to class, and Reddock tells V it isn't normal that she doesn't do anything but be with Xaden when she's with him, and when she's not, her face is deep in a book. But Vi says, quote, I'm fine. This is just what happens when mated dragons bond to riders in different years. End quote. Reddock replies, quote, that is why they usually don't do it. End quote. Rhiannon joins them and tells them that 2 second years have been lost to the interrogation assessment. Quote, guys, listen real close. Pay real close attention here. A scribe cadet walks by, but I can't see who it is with the hood up. That's odd. Usually, they're only in the quadrant for death roll or when Markham needs extra people. End quote. Pause, pause, motherfucking pause. Because when I first read this, I thought this was a person who put the announcements out. But after the Onyx Storm excerpt from Cosmo, when Violet realizes that's how the Venom have infiltrated Biscayeth. So
Mm-hmm.
whoever this is a Venom For sure.
Hiding in plain sight
Hiding in
in the
plain
scribe
sight.
quadrant.
Makes me think, like, those deaths, are they deaths or are they killing them to, like, suck their power from them?
Good
A
point.
lot can happen in Biscayeth. We're only 2
Yeah.
books deep, and we had 3 more to go.
Yeah, I think like Onyx Storm is gonna reveal a lot happening behind the scenes in Beskayeth.
I can't
Guys,
wait.
we're fucked. That's basically
I'm scared.
Listen,
I
all I
want my
know is that
mommy.
nothing better happens to Taryn. That's all I wanna know.
I don't wanna hear no.
I think for Christmas I'm gonna ask for all my family members to just watch my son for like the week so I could just read this book.
It's like the best gift they can give you.
Caroline Ashton approaches them, asking how they managed to escape the interrogation room. Bizarre, since she hates Violet. Why would she go to them? Bodhi approaches them from behind and asks why they aren't in battle brief. And Vi asks him if he knows anything about Xaden, since Taryn told her that he felt Sigel get very angry last night. He replies, no. The squad is walking into the briefing room and notices that there is a roar of murmurs and as cadets talk about leaflets that have been left scattered around the room. The leaflet reads, quote, Zolia falls to Dragonfire. The third largest city in the Bravik province has fallen to the blue fire dragons and their riders. Though the city and its drifts fought valiantly, the 2-day battle ended in Poramish defeat. All who did not evacuate have perished. An estimated 10,000 lives have been lost, including General Fenella, the commander of the Bravik Griffin fleet. All trade routes to the city have been barricaded to prevent further loss of life. End quote. Violet's hands tremble as she looks over to Bodhi and Imogen to figure out what they're going to do. But they had no idea of this attack. 10,000 people lost, you guys. The devastation is a level I can't even imagine. Vi turns around and looks to Professor Devera, hoping she's not hiding the truth. But she looks toward the map. Zolia is a 4-hour flight to Biscayeth. The squad asks Vi if the leaflet is real, and she's trying to discern if it could be as Markham's face turns red. He immediately talks to Caroline and she runs off. Markham tries to get the riders back in order, but Violet notes that even though his face might look serene, she knows him better. Vi knows that this is not part of Markham's plan. Markham plays it as the cadets cannot judge whether something is a piece of propaganda. Like this was what today's class was all about, weaving that blindfold easily and quickly. He says, quote, apparently we're not ready for today's exercise. We were going to follow up on our discussion about propaganda, but I can see how I overestimated your ability to judge a simple printing like this without hysteria, end quote. Violet notes how, quote, words are just as capable of eviscerating someone as a blade, and he's a master, end quote. Rhiannon asks what Markham's next move is if the leaflet was true. Vi says, quote, if he didn't print the leaflets, he'll discredit, deflect, then distract, end quote. Which is exactly what he does, as he says, quote, honestly, you should have been able to spot those leaflets as propaganda within seconds, end quote. 1. Discredit. Then he says, quote, when in the history of Navarre have we ever flown a riot comprised of only blue dragons? But as I said, we'll return to the lesson when we're ready. Right now, our first order of business is here and celebration is in order, end quote. 2. Deflect. And then, quote, he was crushed under the weight of a mountain a few months ago, but Nolan has mended bone after bone to return him to your quadrant, end quote. No one other than Jack Ass Barlow walks into the room.
Yo.
Violet is obviously freaking the fuck out. This is the same unhinged person who tried to kill her multiple times last year from the moment she was on the parapet. She notes, quote, it all makes sense now. The secrecy, her visiting the infirmary, Nolan's exhaustion, end quote. Again, why in the fuck did they save him? Why is he so important? Who is he connected to? What the fuck? Jack turns around and Vi says the look on his face is humble. The fuck? He pivots to find Violet as his glacial blue eyes meet her. So obviously he hasn't channeled recently, which is why his eyes are not red, unless the Venom found a way to hide the red eyes. Rhys says, quote, maybe he learned his lesson, end quote. And Riddock replies, quote, no, he's definitely going to try to kill you again, end quote. Way too much to digest here. It's bringing me to, is he a general's son? Is Markham Venom? And that's why he's trying to hide the truth from the cadets so they can infiltrate them even more on a deeper level? Or what the fuck made them go to that mountain to rescue him and then mend him until he was whole? Why
Right.
did Nolan say, quote, it was hard work mending a soul, end quote.
Steph, as you said in previous episodes of your theory about Jack, you're on to something. He is somebody's baby.
Yeah, he's like way too important.
His stepbrother, his half brother, Xaden. I don't know if it's true. I got crazy theories, mad women theories, but it's just something is weird here.
Or he is the son of the Venom. He's a descendant of one of the brothers who became Venom.
That's a good theory too. That is a good theory too. Why did the Venoms try to save him in the most recent Onyx Storm excerpt? So many fucking questions about his background, but he is somebody important to the story. It does not make sense that he has gotten away with being an asshole, murderous psychopath to getting saved after he was crushed by a mountain
Yeah.
to being brought back. But to go back to how Markham literally weaved the freaking blindfold before our eyes. He literally took this leaflet that was saying the truth. And it's not blue dragons, it's blue fire. Blue fire that was in the leaflet. So Wyvern, obviously. But then he said, when have we ever flown a fleet of blue dragons? Confusing the cadets. And then the fact that he literally makes them feel stupid. He's been saving this card in his pocket for this exact moment. Why were they cheering him on when he came back into the room? Don't other people also think he's fucking psycho?
Yeah, true. Traitors.
That was chapter 25.
Chapter 26. Menders are not healers. Healers are bound to the code of Crichton, sworn to aid all in a time of need and never to harm a beating heart. Menders are writers. They're only sworn to the codex. We can easily bring harm as heal. This is by Major Frederick's Modern Guide for Healers. Jack Barlow is alive, guys, and gives Vi a small nod with a small smile. Different than his usual malicious expressions that Vi is used to, Taryn confirms that Bade has been keeping it a secret, and Rhee hopes that maybe through facing death he has changed. But Riddock and Sawyer don't think it's likely and agree to kill him again.
This whole Jack Barlow situation, again, whose fucking son is he? Because did he not die because he was already Venom? Right? Because remember when Vi is in Fourth Wing and she's gets on Taryn and thinks that she can fuck up that Venom that was on the clock tower, but she can't because she literally, the whole tower falls and he literally walks out of that. So now is Jack that level Venom?
That's a good theory because he's definitely, because I thought in the beginning when I was first reading the series that like Venom were all in that same level-ish until I saw, then later was finding out there's different levels of it. So
it doesn't make sense though. Like why earlier he's like, it's hard work mending someone's soul. So why are they working so hard on Jack?
Yeah.
And when he comes back, I know later on, obviously, like at the end of Iron Flame, he's like crazy and he's like setting the whole thing, but he comes back and he's nice. I just feel like that's weird. Like you can't really act that way. Was Nolan really mending his soul? And then when Nolan stop? Did he just become psycho again? Whose child is he? Why is everybody so invested in him? Because remember, he killed like people right off the bat. In assessment, he snapped somebody's fucking neck and he still stayed in the Riders Quadrant. I know they don't kick people out for that, but nobody makes it a big deal. He's Xaden's half-brother. Nobody wants to believe me, but I am on that hill.
Pussy.
I don't get why he's back. I don't get why he's back and Liam stayed dead. Or is he?
Steph. Let's not go there, please.
I never saw it.
What if he comes back? What if he comes back Venom? Okay, let's not do this. So Vi just suggests them to keep an eye on him for now. Class continues and Devira announces that there has been an unprecedented attack on one of their largest outposts. Devira says, quote, "And this, cadets, is no conjecture, no propaganda, no game," end quote. That last word she said with a sideways glance at Markham. She knows that Markham is a liar pants on fire. Liar robes on fire. She continues by revealing that Samara was attacked, the very same outpost that Xaden and Mira are stationed at, making Violet's anxiety skyrocket as she gets answers from Taryn, who shares her fear in that moment. 3 riders were able to defend the outpost and no casualties were reported, except one rider who was severely injured. Devira seems to hint to Violet that it's Xaden by looking at her and scratching the left side of her neck, where Xaden's relic is located. Violet gets up and leaves while Markham yells at her that she does not have to leave to see Xaden, but she doesn't give a fuck. And Taryn understands because he feels the same way and tells her to go to the courtyard. She almost leaves without her flight jacket until sweet Bodhi comes and gives her his flight jacket so she can ride off into the sunset with Taryn to save her man. Chapter 27. By their 3rd year, a rider must attain full and complete control over their shields. Otherwise, in moments of extreme stress, they are susceptible to being not only influenced by their dragon's emotions, but controlled by them. End quote. And this is by Colonel Kayuri, Field Guide to Dragonkind. Violet and Taryn fly like bats out of hell to get to Samara. And Taryn's emotions for Sigel's safety blends in with Violet's concern for Xaden. So it's like, really crazy, really intense. She knows she is going to get punished, but she doesn't care. Once inside the fortress, she notices the damage from the attack and sees that there are no riders or scribes around the infantry. Mira sees her and braces in for a hug. Violet is so relieved that her sister is okay, but asks where Xaden is. Mira knows that she is going to be in huge trouble when she gets back to Biscayeth, but doesn't try to fight her sister on it. She tells her he is in the sparring gym, which Violet found odd. She gets to the sparring gym, which, by the way, guys, I kind of mad at Mira here. Like, she couldn't give her, a heads up. Like, hey, your man's is good. He's in the sparring gym. So Violet gets to the sparring gym, wondering to herself how badly was he hurt, until she sees him perfectly fine sparring with Garrick. He is totally fine. Xaden's eyes widen when he sees Violet and ends the sparring match with Garrick. He asks her, what is she doing there? And Violet is confused and very frustrated because she doesn't know why. She tells him she can't block Taryn out, signaling that's how she got there. Xaden understands and pulls her in for a hug. They walk into the gym's bathing chambers, and Xaden locks the door.
One moment of deep breath for what's about to happen. Give it to me.
He puts them under freezing cold water and tells Violet to put up her shields, which she does, and feels some sense of distance from Taryn's emotions, which is very relieving for her, of course. He questions her on what happened and asks if she had early leave, but he notices that she is wearing someone else's leather jacket, and he asks, quote, "Who the fuck's flight jacket is that?" End quote.
Give me a possessive man right now. Give it to me.
Violet is on fire and explains to him what happened from the announcement of the attack at this outpost, to Devira signaling that he was hurt, to running out in the middle of the battle brief, and Bodhi letting her borrow his flight jacket because she was too worried to get her own. Xaden hears all of that and smiles at her while he asks, quote, "You're worried about me?" End quote. She tries to admit that she wasn't, because of how pissed she was for being there only to find that he is unharmed. But Xaden says, quote, "You were worried about me," end quote, and starts walking towards her. Ugh, gosh, just imagining this man smiling and prowling towards her like she's his prey. She backs up against the water slick wall and she confesses that she is angry because she let her emotions get the best of her, assuming he wouldn't do the same for her. But Xaden did get hurt. He then reveals a long scar from the injury that was healed by the mender. He assumes that the scribe got to the college with the news before the menders healed him. He then confesses to her that she is wrong and he would be totally out of control if something happened to her. He gets close to her and says, quote, "You want full disclosure when it comes to me, right? How is this for open?" His gaze drops to her mouth. "I would have done the same thing you did because I'm just as reckless for you as you are for me." End quote. So Violet can help but to lick her bottom lip, making Xaden's eyes flare with lust. He then whispers to her with an amused and happy tone, quote, "You were worried about me." End quote. He realizes that although Violet can't say those 3 words, her actions spoke loud enough. He then says, quote, "And you flew here without even stopping to get your leathers," end quote, inching closer to her face, and whispers, quote, "Because you still love me," end quote. And they kiss passionately and aggressively. Her hands travel along his body, marveling at the muscles that formed from years of training and sparring. While doing so, he says her name and angles her head to kiss her more deeply. He tugs her braid, exposing her neck so he can put his mouth on it. Ay, ay, ay. Oh my God. He groans, nearly unable to control himself as she rubs him down. She pulls back, seeing that he is struggling to resist. She argues with him, saying, quote, "Don't make me fight for this. Not again. I can't always be the one fighting for this while you invent new ways to hesitate or tell me no, Xaden. You either want me or you don't." End quote. Xaden counters that he doesn't want to use sex as a weapon to get her back, and she tells him that he is already weaponizing it to make her say those 3 words that he wants to hear. At this, he says, quote, "You told me you can't separate emotion from sex. Remember?" End quote. He got her there, and she knows it. She lets down her hair, knowing it's his biggest weakness when it comes to her, and tells him that if he wants to fight for her, then he has to take a chance and have her without needing to know how she feels. As she did, he says that he doesn't want to say those 3 words because it will seem like he is doing it just for the sex. And she says, quote, "Exactly my point," end quote. Got him. She gives him the ultimatum and basically tells him, "Fuck me or leave me be." And he gives in. His mouth crushing hers, and the intensity of their need for each other explodes between them. This line explains it all. Quote, "He kisses me like I'm the answer to every question, like everything we've been and will be hinges on at this moment. And maybe it does." End quote. He picks her up, leading her to the stone bench as the water sprays around them. I won't go into too much detail here, but let's just say he gets to work. There is a line here that she says to him, quote, "I need you," end quote, while thinking to herself, quote, "Maybe need isn't the right word, but there's no other term that captures how essential he is to my existence," end quote. Oh my God. I can feel the pure, raw desire for him. Now, could this signify a stronger bond than love itself?
Fated mates.
Fated mates. Fated mates.
I'm sticking with my other Mad Woman theory. I have a
It
lot
has
of
to
Mad
be.
Woman theories. This is the Mad Woman Theory podcast.
I love this one. I love this Mad Woman theory. She feels a tension building while thinking to herself, quote, "I love him, I love him, I love him," end quote. And since we know that Xaden can read intentions, he certainly felt that because he then started to thrust harder. And as if in confirmation, as he tries to get her to let go, to release, to explode, she thinks to herself that she can't because she doesn't want it to end ever. And she is afraid it will be the last time. He says, quote, "I can't give this up. I won't give you up. Now let go," end quote. Oh, Lord have mercy. She does, and so does he, while his shadows burst out, leaving cracks in the rocks. He then says to her, quote, "Death of me, I swear," end quote. That line again. She asks what they should do now, and he gives her two options that involve them going again or flying with him to the rendezvous point to drop off the daggers. And he didn't even get to finish, and she was already getting her clothes to go with him. I guess like there is something that Violet might love more than Xaden, and that's the truth. Knowledge, information. So that is the end of chapter 27.
Chapter 28, quote, "Though Griffin riders are not capable of producing signets, they are not powerless. In fact, some would argue that they've honed lesser magic, especially mind work, into the deadliest weapon of all. Underestimating them is an error." End quote. Griffins of Poromiel, A Study in Combat by Major Garion Savoy. Quote, "I still do not approve." End quote. We hear Taryn tell Violet as her, Xaden and Sigel make their way to the rendezvous point. Taryn also tells Violet he is allowing it because he vowed to let her make her own choices after Ressin. I love how protective he is of Violet, like he's filling in as her father. Cute, funny moments, which I love to hear from our sassy, grumpy dad, Taryn, is when he tells Violet after she tells him that Xaden and Sigel take risks all the time, quote, "Sigel would never be taken down by something as puny as a griffin. And as for losing the shadow wielder, she would be emotionally inconvenienced." That is true. End quote. So seriously, unserious. Violet retorts, quote, "An emotional inconvenience? Is that what I am to you?" End quote. And he replies with, quote, "You're currently a prized annoyance." End quote. And when he lands and Vi says it was abrupt, he answers with, quote, "Next time you fly and I'll ride." End quote. I needed this comedic relief after Vi and Xaden just went at it like rabbits for the first time in this book. Taryn does not let Violet dismount, saying that, quote, "Undo that strap and I'll launch." He is in full protection mode because damn does he know more about Xaden and the company he keeps than she does. He continues to say, quote, "I agreed to come to the drop-off. I did not agree to endanger your life when we are easily within Wyvern's flight from Zolia. I too remember what happens to dismounted riders." End quote. This is a good point for Taryn. It is completely unnecessary for her to put herself in danger with people who still blame her for her mother's decisions. 7 Griffins arrive a full drift and land. Also love that Taryn lowers his head as a threat and as a way for Vi to be able to see. 3 flyers dismount and make their way to Xaden. She recognizes one of them as the one who fought with them at Ressin, Serena. Xaden sets the bag before him because if they want them, they need to get closer to Sigel and Taryn. Threat made.
One of the Griffin riders, Cat, approaches to take the bag, and Vi couldn't ignore the longing in this mysterious girl's eyes for Xaden. Him and Serena discuss the attack on Samara, and she explains that it was out of her control, since it was coordinated by another drift in need of the weapons stored at the outpost. Xaden argues with her that those weapons are powering the wards. Cat replied, quote, "Our wards? Since when do you sympathize as Navarian? And at least you have wards, Xaden," end quote. Xaden ignores her and threatens Serena that if the attacks don't stop, he will stop all shipment coming their way, and Serena replies, quote, "You'll condemn us all to death," end quote. Violet couldn't stay quiet anymore and lashes out from Taryn's back saying, quote, "You'll condemn us all to death if you take down the only wards standing between the Venom and the hatching grounds at Biscayeth." She adds that if the wards falter, then the Venom will take the power in the Vale and be unstoppable for centuries. Valid point. Serena and Violet exchange a few words, and suddenly the mysterious woman glares at Violet with jealousy. She tells Xaden, quote, "She's striking, I'll give you that," end quote. Xaden gives her a warning look, saying, quote, "Don't," end quote. He sides with Violet's reasoning, and one of the Griffin riders states that Xaden would prefer their people to die while he is protected behind the wards. Xaden replies with a yes. He tells them that it is a war and people die in wars. It would be foolish of him to risk his people behind the wards for another. But he reassures them that they are fighting alongside them and doing everything they can to provide them with the weapons they need while also completing their own forge. Cat is surprised by this and tells him that Viscount Icarius was willing to give him the luminary if he provided him with someone he wanted, aka Violet. She then says, quote, "They're willing to lead our entire kingdom to fall prey to these monsters because you are what? Smitten? Please. I know you better than that." End quote. Serena snaps at her sister Cat to keep her from talking any further. Violet is confused but has a hunch this is about her. She tells Xaden through the bond that they will discuss it later. Xaden ends the conversation by explaining the basics of his plan about building a forge to supply them with more weapons, but providing what they can for now. She warns Xaden they are running out of time and tells him that she will do what she can do to lessen the attacks on the outposts. Xaden responds with the threat, quote, "Come for our wards and I'll watch you die," end quote. Violet starts thinking that they need to have a ward of their own. So compassionate, that girl. She just cares about everybody, even if they don't care about her. So sweet. As they're about to depart, Serena is turning back to her drift when she says, quote, "Let's go, Catriona." And Violet remembers that Bodhi said, quote, "I've never seen him care like this, and that includes Catriona," end quote.
Fuck you, Cat.
That's her nickname. That's her nickname.
So
Fuck you, Cat.
first of all, again, I keep bringing up the graphic audio, but when so I'm past this part in the graphic audio, and when I hear Kat just like when they're at the part with the dinner and she just like, "Oh, you didn't want to go with another color dress? Like Xaden hates wearing black and all this stuff." And I'm just like, oh, her voice pissed me off. I was like, Violet, like, I got you. I'm right behind you. Let's do this.
Yeah,
Anyway,
seriously.
She
so
seems
she's
like such a
extra annoying.
pick me.
Yeah,
She does. And it's worse in the graphic audio because she, like, whoever does her voice played it so well. And I was like, oh my God, I was so mad. Anyway, on a lighter note, thank you so much to everyone who has been supporting us. We love you and we are so thankful for the support. Stay tuned for our next episode. We will be posting a new episode every Tuesday. And Steph, have fun at Disney.
Thank you. And thanks for being here on this Tuesday while I am in Disney World at Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party. We're just your local trio of best friends enjoying each other's company and talking about what they love the most, books. This podcast is so much fun to make when you have the best girls doing it with you. Remember to follow us on at Enchanted Circle Pod on Insta and TikTok, and follow/subscribe to our podcast channel on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or YouTube.
Thank you for tuning in and for your continuous support. Let us know what you think about today's episode on our social media platforms. We would love to hear your thoughts and theories. Hope you have a great week and get all your Christmas shopping out of the way with the least amount of stress as possible. Until next time on the Enchanted Circle Pod.